At 4:13 in the morning, a little boy arrived at a hospital in Rio de Janeiro already dying. He was unconscious, barely breathing, his body limp in his mother's arms. Doctors rushed him inside expecting some kind of accident. A fall, maybe a seizure, something explainable. But the moment they removed his clothes, the room changed. Bruises, cuts, marks in different stages of healing. One doctor would later say it didn't look like a child who got hurt once. It looked like a child who had been suffering for a long time. And standing nearby, watching the chaos unfold, was a well-known politician calmly trying to explain what happened. The story sounded strange immediately. Too rehearsed, too clean, because according to him, 4-year-old Henry Borel had somehow hurt himself alone. But the injuries covering the child's body were telling a completely different story. And within hours, an entire country would begin asking the same horrifying question: what was happening inside that apartment? Henry Borel was the kind of child people instantly loved. Quiet, gentle, big eyes, small voice, the type of kid who smiled with his whole face. Videos showed him painting with his hands, laughing at cartoons, clinging to his father during family moments that now feel almost painful to watch. Because when people replay those videos today, they aren't looking at innocence anymore. They're looking for signs, for fear, for something everyone missed. After his parents separated, Henry split his time between his father and his mother, Monique Medeiros. At first, nothing seemed unusual, at least not publicly. Monique had started dating a powerful city councilman known across Brazil as Dr. Jairinho. He looked respectable, educated, controlled, the kind of man who knew exactly how to behave in public. And maybe that's what made everything so disturbing later. Because neighbors would eventually describe hearing cries coming from the apartment. Sudden noises, arguments, strange tension behind closed doors. Henry's father later claimed the boy had become anxious before visiting his mother's home. He allegedly didn't want to stay there. Sometimes he cried before going back. At the time, nobody fully understood why. Then came the final night. According to investigators, Henry had spent the evening inside the luxury apartment where Monique and Jairinho lived together. Sometime during the night, something happened inside that bedroom, something violent. The couple later told police that Henry fell from the bed and hit his head. Then parts of the story changed. Maybe he had fainted. Maybe he ran into furniture. Every explanation seemed to shift slightly depending on who was asking questions, but doctors weren't buying it. The injuries were catastrophic, not only to the head. There were bruises across his body, damage consistent with repeated aggression. Signs that didn't match a simple accident no matter how investigators reconstructed the scene. And then things became darker. Police discovered evidence suggesting Henry may have been assaulted before that night. Some injuries appeared older. Investigators began suspecting a pattern of abuse hidden beneath ordinary family life that changed the case completely. Now this wasn't just about how Henry died. It was about how long he had been suffering before anyone stopped it. As media coverage exploded across Brazil, the public became obsessed with one detail in particular: the behavior of the adults. At the hospital, witnesses described Monique as emotionally distant at moments that felt unnatural. Jairinho appeared unusually composed, calm, controlled, speaking carefully, watching everything, not panicking, not grieving, managing. And the more investigators dug into his background, the more unsettling the picture became. Former partners reportedly described aggressive behavior. Stories began surfacing about manipulation, intimidation, emotional control. None of it proved murder by itself, but together, it created the image of someone capable of hiding darkness behind charisma. Meanwhile, Henry's father went public almost immediately. His interviews were raw, emotional, furious. He accused Jairinho directly, saying he believed his son had been tortured. He claimed Henry had shown fear before, that there were warning signs no one acted on fast enough. Suddenly the entire country split into two realities. One side saw a tragic accident. The other saw something monstrous hiding in plain sight. Then investigators uncovered messages exchanged after Henry's death, conversations about what should be said, how events should be described, how the timeline should look. And that's when suspicion turned into something much heavier, because innocent people usually try to explain the truth, not organize it. Police reconstructed the final hours minute by minute. Security cameras, elevator records, witness statements, medical reports. The apartment itself became central to the investigation. A beautiful luxury home transformed into something sinister in the public imagination. People stared at photographs of the hallways and bedrooms, wondering how violence could exist somewhere that looked so normal. But that's the thing about cases like this. The scariest ones never happen in abandoned buildings. They happen in places where children are supposed to feel safe. During questioning, investigators noticed contradictions piling up. Tiny details changing, timelines bending. Long pauses before answers. Moments where silence said more than words. Jairinho denied everything. Monique stood beside him for a long time. And that may have disturbed people almost as much as the crime itself, because many couldn't understand how a mother remained next to the man accused of killing her child. But psychologically, these cases are rarely simple. Fear, dependency, manipulation, control. Sometimes the people closest to violence become trapped inside it long before outsiders notice. Eventually, both Jairinho and Monique became defendants in Henry's murder case. Prosecutors argued the child suffered repeated physical aggression before the fatal assault. The investigation painted a horrifying portrait of abuse hidden behind wealth, status, and carefully constructed appearances. And maybe that's why the case haunted Brazil so deeply, not just because a child died, but because so many people now believe he was trying to communicate suffering long before his final night. Small behaviors, fear, crying, silence, things adults often dismiss until it's too late. Today, Henry Borel's face still appears across documentaries, news reports, and court coverage. Frozen in photographs, smiling, covered in blue paint. Looking exactly like what he was, a child. And somewhere behind all the headlines, legal arguments, and public outrage, one question still lingers uncomfortably in the air. If the bruises were visible in the end, how many invisible ones came before them?
If you enjoy dark true crime stories, disturbing mysteries, and psychological investigations, make sure to subscribe to Psychoi777. New videos are uploaded every day. Don't forget to like the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new case.